그대가 향한 시선이 나에게 향해졌으면 그대의 예쁜 미소가 나에게만 보였으면 좋겠어. 맴돌다가 닿은 곳에는 덮어두고 못 본 채 했던 지난 날의 눈물들을 말 없이 울었던 저녁을 사랑하겠어. 눈물에 짓눌려 부서지지 않기 위해서 날 부르는 희미한 빛을 따라 어둠을 품에 안고서 나의 저녁을 사랑하겠어.
It's May 23rd here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the second presidential candidate TV debate. The four main runners take part in their second TV debate on Friday night, 11 days ahead of the snap presidential election. And this time, social issues from pension to medical reforms will be on the debate table. The Trump administration is considering pulling roughly 4,500 U.S. soldiers out of South Korea to relocate them to regions in the Indo-Pacific, including Guam, according to the Wall Street Journal. The Pentagon is yet to confirm such report. And the Trump administration is blocking Harvard University from enrolling international students who take up more than a quarter of its annual enrollment. Harvard calls the move unlawful with a pledge of support for foreign students. The Trump administration could be pulling thousands of U.S. soldiers out of South Korea to have them stationed in other locations in the Indo-Pacific, an idea that's reportedly yet to be greenlit by Trump. Our Bae-eun-ji has our top story.
The U.S. is considering withdrawing around 4,500 American troops from South Korea to Guam or other locations in the Indo-Pacific region. That's about 16% of the total number of U.S. forces in South Korea, where there are roughly 28,500 troops. Citing defense officials familiar with the matter, the Wall Street Journal reported on Thursday that the idea is being developed by the Pentagon for consideration by Trump as part of an informal policy review on dealing with North Korea. It added the proposal has yet to reach Trump's desk and is one of several ideas under discussion by senior officials conducting the review. When asked about a possible troop withdrawal, the Pentagon reportedly said there were no policy announcements to make. Since his first term, Trump has considered changing the U.S. footprint in South Korea, which relies on close coordination with U.S. forces to deter threats from North Korea.
I mean, it depends. We pay for military over in Europe. You know, we don't get reimbursed by much. South Korea too.
But the head of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command has presented negative views about the idea of a troop drawdown in a Senate hearing last month, saying the loss of the force on the Korean Peninsula would mean a higher probability that North Korea would invade.
As General Brunson said, North Korea's development of advanced nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles pose a direct threat to our homeland and our allies, and are executing a deepening cooperation with Russia.
Trump has been hinting at an attempt to renegotiate a deal on sharing the cost for American troops stationed in Korea, saying Washington cannot be taken advantage of any longer in military and trade. He's described South Korea as a money machine, insisting that Seoul should be paying $10 billion a year. Pulling troops out of Korea could mean that the Trump administration is looking to redeploy them to areas that better align with priority goals, such as countering China. The Washington Post reported in March that a secret internal guidance memo signed by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth showed that the country considers China as its sole pacing threat, pressuring allies in East Asia, Europe, and the Middle East to spend more on defense to deal with threats from North Korea, Russia, and Iran. 배은지, Arirang News.
National polls are releasing their final public opinion surveys ahead of the June 3rd presidential election. Now, the race is getting tighter as voters become more sure of who they will back on the election day. Our Oh Soo-young breaks down the figures.
With just 11 days until the June 3rd presidential election, the stakes are higher in the final public opinion polls and the candidates' televised debates. A Gallup survey conducted between May 20th and 21st shows Democratic Party's Lee Jae-myung is still ahead with 46% support. But compared to a week earlier, his approval has dropped, while his main rival Kim Moon-soo of the People Power Party has gained 5 points, narrowing the gap between them from 22 points to 12. Meanwhile, the Reform Party's Jun-seok saw his support jump to 11%, marking two-digit figures for the first time in this race, as the young right-leaning candidate and former PPP leader appeals to a growing number of 20s and 30s and centrist voters. The final National Barometer survey on Thursday showed a similar trend. Lee Jae-myung lost 3 points, while Kim Moon-soo and Jun-seok scored higher ratings at 32% and 10%. It seems conservatives and moderates have been solidifying their votes as election day draws near. The gap between the main liberal and conservative candidates shrunk to about 1/3 of last week's level in the Seoul capital region. Young Koreans regarded swing voters also made decisive moves. Among voters aged 29 and under, support for Jun-seok jumped to 26%, ranking a close second behind DP Lee Jae-myung's 30%. The PPP's Kim Moon-soo fell behind at 19%. As all candidates aim to solidify their support base, the number of respondents who said they could switch the candidate they vote for fell 1 percentage point to 16%. More than 8 in 10 people say they'll vote in this election. According to the MBS survey, voters believe the biggest task for the new president will be reviving the local economy, reforming the structure of politics, and reducing social conflict. The leading presidential hopefuls will go head-to-head on Friday night in their second televised debate focusing on social issues. Regardless of their preferred candidate, Korean adults under 40 believe the Harvard-educated Jun-seok performed the best at the candidate's first televised debate last Sunday. Those in their 40s and 50s who are left-leaning overwhelmingly backed the DP candidate, and those over 70 believed PPP's Kim Moon-soo had outshined others in the TV debate. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
And ahead of the Friday's TV debate, the main runners are keeping themselves busy, wooing voters across the country. Democratic Party's Lee Jae-myung toured Jeju and Gyeongsangnam-do Province on Thursday, where he stressed balanced regional growth. Our Shin Ha-young reports.
Democratic Party presidential candidate Lee Jae-myung wrapped up his Thursday campaign in the city of Yangsan in Gyeongsangnam-do Province, which the DP describes as a city with strong potential to become a global logistics hub. thanks to its location and ability to adapt to changing international conditions. During his speech, he emphasized balanced regional growth. Now, this is Lee Jae-myung's second visit to Gyeongsangnam-do Province during the official campaign period, and it's been seen as an effort to secure more votes in the region compared to the last presidential election when he lost to former President Jun-seok with about 37% of the vote. Before coming to Yangsan, he held a rally on Jeju Island, where he highlighted the importance of wind power and said Jeju should take the lead in renewable energy.
Before long, Jeju Island will become a truly eco-friendly place, powered entirely by clean energy with no reliance on fossil fuels. It's on track to become a leading region and model city for renewable energy in Korea, and we must make that happen.
He also addressed the April 3rd incident where around 30,000 civilian protesters were killed in what the authorities at the time characterized as an anti-communist crackdown. He said that he visits Jeju every year for the April 3rd memorial and hopes to come back next year as president. With Lee's visit to Gyeongsangnam-do Province, attention is now on whether he will meet former President Moon Jae-in during the trip. This comes as Lee is scheduled to visit Bongha village in the city of Gimhae on Friday, where a memorial service will be held to mark the 60th anniversary of former President Roh Moo-hyun's death. The visit is seen as a way to emphasize the party's legacy and rally core supporters. There's a chance Lee and Moon could meet as they did last year when Lee joined Moon and former First Lady Kwon Yang-suk for lunch after the ceremony. 신하영, Arirang News, Yangsan.
And the main Conservative Party's candidate took the time to meet with different organizations here in the capital area, including doctors' associations amid the prolonged conflict over medical reform. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
Yet another apology from the People Power Party for the actions of the former administration. On Thursday, presidential candidate Kim Moon-soo met with leaders of the medical community, issuing a public apology for the Yoon Suk-yeol administration's handling of the medical reform despite collective pushback from doctors.
As a responsible cabinet member of the government myself, I sincerely offer an apology. The fact that it's not just one or two doctors, but nearly all of them raising this issue, clearly indicates there is a problem.
Kim clarified that he wasn't taking sides, but emphasized the need for the government to listen to professionals in the field. According to the Doctors Association, Kim pledged to resolve the ongoing medical crisis within the first 6 months of his term. He spent a day meeting with various civil society groups. At a roundtable with the heads of Korea's 5 major business organizations, Kim highlighted his pro-industry record as former Gyeonggi-do Province governor. This was also his 4th day in the capital region, meeting organizations and rallying for support. And one of his rallies here was Bucheon City's Sosagu district, his old congressional district, where he served 3 terms until around 20 years ago. This also comes as the capital region is always a key battleground where he needs to expand his support to turn things around before the election day. Meanwhile, Kim also made a surprise morning announcement calling for sweeping political reform.
Will we achieve a second wave of democratization or head toward an authoritarian presidential system? I am deeply concerned.
His remarks were seen as a warning against a potential power monopoly should Democratic Party frontrunner Lee Jae-myung win, adding to the DP's existing parliamentary majority. Kim's reform pledges include cutting the number of lawmakers from 300 to 270, granting the opposition power to appoint an independent inspector general, raising the threshold for impeachment motions, and shielding the judiciary and investigative bodies from political pressure. His message lands as a DP filed around 30 impeachment motions during Yoon's term, only one of which, against former President Yoon, passed. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
And Reform Party candidate Jun-seok is still firmly rejecting a merger with the main Conservative Party candidate Kim Moon-soo, saying it will be his own name and party on the voting ballots. On Thursday, he held an emergency press conference with regard to People Power Party's so-called love calls to the young candidate, urging him to join hands with Kim Moon-soo to form a stronger conservative ticket. He said that his support in national polls hit 10% for the first time and dismissed the idea of a merger as meaningless. On his campaign trail, he continued to target young voters and centrists in the Greater Seoul area. He also continued his campus cafeteria outreach, meeting with students at Inha University. In about 10 days, South Korea will have a new leader, which also raises hopes of a possible South Korea-U.S. summit and a solution to the lingering U.S. tariff issues. Let us discuss more with Professor Kim Ha-gyun this morning. Welcome back, Professor Kim.
Thank you for the invite.
So I'd like to begin with the latest trade figures. According to the Korea Customs Service on Wednesday, exports in the first 3 weeks of May were down 2.4% on year. Professor Kim, would you say we are already being hit by tariff-related repercussions?
It is plausible that Korean exports are beginning to feel tariff-related effects, but this early decline is a bit too early, I think, and it's not definite evidence alone. So a little more rigorous analysis probably is necessary in terms of like the product and also destination, actually. But according to the historical studies or the previous studies, when the tariff imposition happens, then typically it takes about 2 to 4 quarters to have a full effect. So in that sense, this really early May effect is a little just premature in some sense, but clearly there's some expectations channel that, like, for instance, like in case of the automobiles,
right.
I know that like lots of the dealers actually started buying the Korean cars earlier to mitigate this effect, and maybe in May they don't actually decide to buy more, so maybe that actually is reflected. So I think it's going to be like a combination of both full effects and the expectations effects. So I think we have to look and see, but clearly the Korea probably has to prepare for some of these main effects given this the number.
So we don't need to be all or too dramatic about it, but still it could be a clue to what to expect in the coming weeks or months now. The second round of trade negotiations between South Korea and the U.S. were more timely than ever with the whole latest figures now. Do you think the U.S. proposed what it really wants at the talks this time, or do we know what they want already?
I mean, there's always some strategic ambiguity here posed by the U.S. government, obviously, but then while some objectives are well known, like the trade imbalance, that seems to be like very universal across countries that the U.S. is dealing with. And there are some other things. And we also know that the main target for this tariff is definitely China. So I think the origin of like these products or services, or whether China is trying to bypass like through the Korea and some other countries in terms of selling their products, I think. So these are the clear motivations. And also probably, I don't know to what extent it is the case, but the U.S. definitely tries to mitigate the degree of this fiscal deficits, and then the tariff actually is probably like used as like some tax revenue, obviously, collecting from the foreign firms, basically. So I think all these kind of things, some combinations. What we don't know is like percentage. So to what extent I think it is about just fixing the trade surplus, or it's going to be more about the tariff revenue. We don't know.
Certainly. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Professor Kim. I feel like there's no reason for the U.S. or South Korea to, rush through the whole trade negotiation, since we will have a new government soon after the election.
Yeah, so I think I don't think neither side actually, I think that neither side has strong incentive to rush. And we already kind of saw some UK deal and then some preliminary China deal. So it's going to be given as like some range. There could be some slight changes, but I think we know that the South Korea is going to be probably somewhere in between, hopefully more kind of closer to the UK side.
Right.
But we don't know yet. But I think in terms of the speed, I don't think the U.S. also is like really rushing. They want to have some big picture agreed, but they know also that once the election's over, then the new government, actually the administration team is going to start negotiating. So if they make too much hasty decisions, and then if the new government is going to just, to flip everything, that's going to be super costly in terms of both reputation and also actual, the time and efforts. So I think both will try to kind of, the time the market, I think, the deal a bit.
Well, what we do know is that South Korea will have a new leader in about 11 days, But do you think a summit between the leaders of the new South Korean leader and Trump be, any help in resolving the trade issues, or no? What do you think?
I think so. I mean, I don't think this big summit, meeting is going to handle all the details. But, the big picture agreement is important so that, the practitioners and also the officials actually get into actual negotiation in terms of like details, which is more important. So big picture agreement wise, I think summit work actually going to be very important in that regard. At least the one part of the uncertainty is going to be resolved. So I think after election, if the new leader in South Korea, the new president, is going to deal with President Trump, I think that's definitely going to resolve the uncertainty, at least in terms of like the big picture.
But neither South Korea nor the U.S. wants to pass the July 31st, that's when the 90-day tariff pause expires, right? They do want to make, settle things down before then, right?
Yeah, I think so. But at least the thing is, if we all like say, oh, this is going to be the hard deadline, and then I think there's a chance that the U.S. may just flip later. Well, especially if this is not in their full favor. If it is actually going to be a good deal, then of course they will try to use it. So I think from the South Korean government's point of view, I think that's July 31st as the hard deadline, and then try to get into that actually, and then do the best actually negotiation. Probably that's the best optimal strategy. But if somehow the U.S. actually wants to delay because of the other countries, because it's like, U.S. has to deal with like multiple countries at the same time.
Right.
So South Korea's government's the attitude versus the U.S. government's actually attitude probably may be asymmetric. But at least for the South Korean perspective, I think it's probably a good idea to, give this as like hard deadline, do their best actually.
All right, Professor Kim, thank you so much for connecting with us this morning. You have a wonderful day there.
Always pleasure.
The U.S. Department of Homeland Security announced that it will ban Harvard University from enrolling international students. Now, according to the U.S. officials, Harvard may be just the beginning. Our Lee-seung has more.
The Trump administration has barred Harvard University from enrolling international students moving forward. According to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security on Thursday, it has revoked the school's Student and Exchange Visitor Program certification, saying that Harvard has created an unsafe campus environment by permitting anti-American, pro-terrorist agitators to harass and physically assault individuals, including many Jewish students, and otherwise obstruct its once venerable learning environment. The DHS added that many of the agitators are foreign students. The latest ban also means that currently enrolled students at the Ivy League school must transfer or lose their legal status. The move comes as Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem ordered the DHS to terminate the school's Student and Exchange Visitor Program certification due to the university's refusal to hand over the conduct records of international students as requested last month. In an interview with Fox News on Thursday, Noem said that her department is absolutely considering similar measures for other universities, including Columbia University. She stressed that what has happened to Harvard should be a warning to all other universities to get their act together. The Trump administration's revoking of Harvard's Student and Exchange Visitor Program certification means 6,800 international students enrolled in the school must transfer to keep hold of their legal status in the U.S. 이승재, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Choi Ji-hee, and this is The World Now. Beginning in Australia, severe flooding across New South Wales has resulted in at least 4 deaths and left more than 50,000 residents under evacuation warnings. Reports say around 4 months of rain has fallen in the region over the past 2 days. New South Wales police said Thursday that at least 4 people died and tens of thousands of residents have become isolated in a once-in-a-lifetime event. A slow-moving low-pressure system led to torrential rains and flash flooding over eastern Australia, overflowing rivers and inundating communities. A major river in Tariff, a city on the mid-north coast, has been among the worst affected, reaching about 6.3 meters on Wednesday, surpassing a century-old record. Towns including Port Macquarie and Kempsey have also been severely affected, with some areas experiencing flooding for the first time in recorded history. Emergency services have conducted hundreds of rescues, and over 140 flood warnings have been issued. While more rain is expected in the coming days, some 9,500 properties have been directly impacted, and over 100 schools have been closed. Iran's foreign minister has issued a warning to Israel and the United States, saying that any attack on its nuclear facilities would be met with a decisive response. This comes amid reports that suggest Israel is preparing for potential strikes if ongoing U.S.-Iran nuclear negotiations fail. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Thursday that Iran would hold the United States legally responsible for any Israeli attack on its nuclear sites. These words were delivered through a letter addressed to United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He added Tehran would view Washington as a participant if any Israeli attack on Iran's nuclear facilities were to occur, and that Iran's actions will correspond and be proportionate to preventive measures taken by international bodies. Earlier reports indicate that Israel is preparing for rapid strikes on Iranian nuclear sites should the current negotiations, a 5th round of which are slated for Friday in Rome, were to fail. Israeli officials have not confirmed such plans, but have previously stated that Iran's nuclear program poses an existential threat. A U.S. music talent agency said Thursday that 3 of its employees died after a small private plane in which they were traveling crashed into a residential area in the city of San Diego in the early hours of the same day. According to the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, 6 passengers were on board the plane, with some reports indicating there have been no survivors. 8 people on the ground have also been injured. Authorities say the incident occurred amid dense fog conditions as the aircraft was attempting to land at nearby Montgomery Gibbs Executive Airport. Multiple homes have caught fire due to the crash, and nearly 100 residents have been evacuated. The Federal Aviation Administration and the National Transportation Safety Board are investigating the incident.
It's been a confusing last couple of weeks in terms of choosing how to dress for the day. But the early summer heat is finally taking a brief pause today. Cooler, drier air is pushing out that warm, humid air mass. Readings will stay slightly below the north with rain in the forecast from tonight into Saturday. Rain will start to move in again tonight in most parts of the country before clearing out by tomorrow afternoon. Jeju could see as much as up to 60 millimeters along with strong winds. The rest of the country will see 5 to 20 millimeters. Daytime highs will be about 2 to 7 degrees, lower than yesterday. Seoul, Gwangju both getting up to 23 degrees, Daegu at 22 degrees. Temperatures will start to climb again from next Monday with no rain in the forecast for next week.
That is all we have for this morning. New Day and Arirang will be back next Monday at the same time, 10 a.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.
제21대 대통령 재외선거.
세계 어느 곳에 있어도
내가 국가대표라는 마음으로
누구보다 땀 흘리죠. 지금이 국가대표임을
보여줄 기회.
대한민국 국민의 권리.
대한민국 국민의 의무.
반드시
투표합니다.
국가를 위한 대통령 투표. 제21대 대통령 재외선거. 중앙선거관리위원회.
천안에 가면
재밌다 이거. 글로벌 K컬처 세계 속에 꽃 피우다.
2025 천안 K컬처 박람회.
2025 celebrates the 80th anniversary of liberation. A place filled with culture, history, and diverse experiences. This is the Independence Hall of Korea. Upholding the values of the independence movement, and together with the whole nation, we will make Korea great. The Independence Hall of Korea.
제주 영어 교육 도시의 중심 NLCS 제주에서 세계 명문대 출신 엘리트 교사진과 해외 커리큘럼으로 전 세계 상위 1%의 학사 성과를 달성하고 있으며 졸업생들은 세계 최정상급 대학으로 진학하고 있습니다. 전인적인 성장과 함께 꿈을 찾아가는 특별한 교육의 가치. 글로벌 동문 네트워크로 계속됩니다. NLCS 제주가 명문대 진학의 길을 열어갑니다.
bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Friday, May 23rd here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and welcome to News Generation. Joining us today is Kwon Ji-yeon.
Happy Friday!
Happy Friday! And Im Sang-yeon.
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. As you know, Friday is when we discuss topics that resonate with young people around the world. Now, whether it's finding it, nurturing it, or moving on from it, love always seems to be on the minds of young people. So today on News Gen, we're going to take a closer look at the latest dating trends among young people. So starting off, Ji-yeon, how active would you say millennials and Gen Z are when it comes to dating these days?
Well, they are quite active indeed. They are busy. Well, dating and meeting someone. A recent survey in Korea asked this question: how many romantic relationships have you had so far? The results showed that around 38% said they have dated 3 to 5 times, and 17% said they have had 6 or more relationships in their life, and roughly a third said they have only dated once or twice, and just 12% have never dated at all. So overall, it looks like most Gen Zs here actually aren't shy about romance. Clearly, love is a big part of their life for this generation indeed.
Right, because looking at the stats you mentioned, besides those who answered they've never been in a relationship, which I remember is 12%, that means almost 90% of the respondents were actually in a relationship in a relationship.
That's right.
Okay, so in recent years, we've also been seeing a wave of really creative or unconventional dating trends popping up around the world, which we've mentioned several times on Newsden before as well. So Ji-yeon, could you also introduce us to some of the latest and most standout dating trends among our generation?
Well, the dating trends are always changing, but there's also something called very unique one: friendship marriage. It first appeared in Japan a few years ago, but now it's catching on among young people in China. You know, these days faced with pressure from family and relatives, society to get married, whenever you have those family gatherings, the question that they ask is, when are you going to tie the knot? So instead of marrying their relative, instead of marrying their significant other, they chose their close friend instead.
Wow.
They live together, share expenses, and best of all, avoid the stress of dating drama. When you date someone, you have those dramas, emotional ups and downs every day. And on this major social media platform that is Weibo in China, it says this interesting thing. They have this post: looking for someone to marry, romance optional. Yes, it's a practical setup that is, that allows for independence, emotional peace, and freedom to love on your own terms. It works for finding for someone who looking for, who hates pineapple pizza, someone who works at a gym, or someone who works at a finance. So
well, those are important, actually.
That's the important part, but those kind of the option that they are looking for these days.
That is very interesting and a very new concept of dating and marriage. What could be some other examples, Sang-yeon?
Well, there were some interesting findings as I was searching for this topic. And by the way, I hate pineapple pizza as well. Okay, so in Japan, a new trend actually has emerged called the full-time girlfriend. So she takes care of all the housework for her boyfriend, doing the laundry, cleaning, packing his lunch, and even preparing an elaborate birthday meal. And in return, the boyfriend gives allowances or even some luxury gifts. Now, a similar concept exists in the U.S. as well, known as stay-at-home girlfriends. And these women cook, clean, and take care of all the household for their boyfriends.
Like a housewife, right?
Right, while maintaining the appearance of themselves through strict self-care and therapist routines to stay at the top of the game visually. Okay, and the trend reflects how Gen Z is moving away from the hustle culture symbolized by the girl boss ideal, and instead dreaming of a more relaxed and comfortable lifestyle. And videos showing the daily lives of stay-at-home girlfriends has gone viral in TikTok.
Very fascinating. So we've taken a look at some very unique dating trends, but now from a broader perspective, we're going to take a look at some of the most common or consistent dating trends among young people globally. So what are they?
Well, the overall trend in terms of dating these days is changing and taking a bold new turn. And people aren't afraid to say exactly what they want from their partner. I told you about the looking for something post. According to Tinder, one of the biggest global trends in dating right now is something called loud looking.
Loud looking.
Clearly and confidently say what you want in a partner. So back in 2024 last year, the most common phrase in Tinder profiles was looking for someone. It shows that people are being more open and direct about what they actually want from their partner. So I told you, someone who hits the gym at least 3 times a week, or someone who loves dogs, or who is a person who works at a education or different field that they want. It sounds practical in some way, but it could be a time saver, but that's not really how we'll build up, we treat relationships. That kind of logic doesn't really apply to human ties, human relationships.
Right, because in the past, when you laid out all these conditions, many people would have told you that you are really, really picky. But nowadays, young people aren't really shy.
It's optional.
Wow, that is once again very mind-boggling and attention-grabbing. And Sang, I want to ask you, how specific can these conditions be?
Yeah, so in a similar vein, creating a detailed ideal type list has become a trend among Gen Z. So instead of simply writing something vague, like I want someone who's kind or who's good looking, they describe their ideal partner in a very specific terms. For example, someone who gently brushes my hair aside so it doesn't touch the food while I eat, or someone who buys me a spicy food when I'm stressed out without making me to ask for it. So these lists often include anywhere from 10 to over 50 such detailed traits.
Wow.
And in Korea, YouTubers like Ian or Charles Antar also gained attention by sharing videos on how to create your own ideal type list.
I mean, I'm not that of a creative person, so I'm not sure how we can come up with 50 different conditions, but we're now gonna kind of take a look at what young people truly value or prioritize when finding them. Let's look at what this list is made of.
Yes, let's look at the numbers first of all, what the people say. Well, Tinder recently surveyed 4,000 NZ users in English-speaking countries in order to find out what really matters most when it comes to dating, when they build up the relationship. Top of the list was trust.
Very important.
That's right, chosen by 40% of respondents. Faith was the most important part. That was followed by physical attraction. I do agree with that. And shared values, what you share the most. And emotional connection followed, and common hobbies was the last part that they valued. So that's what people are looking for. But what about deal breakers? What turns people off the most? Number one was poor hygiene. They have dirts under their fingernail. Then came rudeness, being rude to the partner, rude to their parents, or rude to other people. And talking is not just talking about your ex, it's talking way too much about your ex-girlfriend, ex-partner, which put off 34% of those surveys. So yes, trust is key, but don't forget to wash your hands and mind your manners.
They are really important. Okay, so to find out what our viewers think about today's topic, we ran a poll on our Arirang News YouTube channel, asking them what matters most to you when choosing a partner. If we look at the results, 69% chose personality, followed by financial stability, 17%, and last but not least, appearance, 14%. We're also going to read out 3 comments. DS92KO, definitely personality, a good sense of humor, and kindness really do go a long way. Brown Giraffe 33 says, I'm drawn to genuine connection over surface level traits, so personality matters to me the most. Our final comment for this Friday is by Daniel Gun Kim. Chemistry, even if the guy or girl is attractive, if there isn't chemistry in your conversations, it's hard. I think after that, it's respect and then looks. Chemistry is indeed important when defining a relationship. Okay, so to widen our conversation even further, after the break, we'll be joined by a Spanish Gen Z to hear his take on dating and relationships in his country and culture.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
In my opinion, it would be mutual understanding, but also mutual attraction. You cannot have one without the other. When it comes to understanding, it's not only about liking the same music or the same food. It's also about that social partnership. We need to share values. We need to share limits. Also have some kind of like financial flow between each other. And so to have that, there is also a sense of responsibility. But at the same time, you cannot have that without attraction. Attraction is not only physical and superficial, but also that spark of the way someone speaks or moves. And if you don't really have that, it's hard for people to commit to the responsibilities of that kind of communication. So basically finding balance between both of those. Yes, for the last few years, dating apps have been very important because they always avoid the awkwardness of being rejected in real life. But they also have a very direct approach. You also have social media where you have that kind of consent, but it's a little bit more organic, a little bit more natural. However, I think in Spain, there's been a very slight shift in the past few years where people are trying to not use apps that much. For example, a very famous Spanish newspaper called El País did a study on it, and around 40% of the population have used dating apps before, with 80% of the population being engaged in relationships that come from the internet. However, very famous apps like Tinder or Bumble have seen a 70% value decrease in the last 5 years, which goes to show that there's still this kind of lingering shame or lingering stigma around online relationships, which means that people are craving for something more natural or organic. So a lot of shared activities, a lot of hobbies are being the trend right now. Even in Korea, I have a lot of friends who are attending these running groups. I don't know if you have heard about those, but they have become the new Tinder, where you can swipe left and right, but in real life. The most basic advice would be to be transparent and having good communication skills, which I think are non-negotiable. But I would also add adaptability and self-awareness into the mix. Especially in Western cultures, we have this very growing movement of self-love and self-confidence, which is obviously very important and great. But at the same time, you cannot expect people to just take you as you are. We need to be open to growth and to adapt to other people's standards, just as we have our own standards. So by having only our own standards and trying to let people to adapt to those, we are creating this kind of wall. And to have a very healthy and long-lasting relationship is very important to be open to not only change things about yourself, but also grow and you know, try to keep that respect inside the relationship.
Once again, we'd like to thank our guest for sharing the thoughts and the time today. And wrapping up today's episode, we're each going to share what we believe is the key to maintaining a strong and loving relationship with everybody, which is what everybody dreams of. So starting with you, Jian, you're the only person in the studio who is married, who has kids, and is having a very happy and loving marriage life. So what do you think is the top priority when trying to maintain this relationship?
I was thinking about my dating time back in the days. But what really matters most in a relationship? I was thinking about this question for 10 minutes. And if you ask me, it all comes down to communication, conversation between your partner. So good conversation helps build trust and emotional intimacy. It's how you get to know each other deeply, not just on the surface. So these days in dating, and you know, these days there are so many dating shows, including I Am Solo. If you look at those shows, one of the most common questions that people ask early on, even before they build up their relationship. How do you handle conflict? If you have a fight with your partner, how do you solve it? That was kind of a, good question. It's a good reason that you asked that, because challenges will come. You will have that hurdle in your life. And how you talk through them matters more than ever. So being honest about what you need and speaking out when something bothers you isn't always easy, but what matters, love lasts. And some people try to bottle up their feelings a lot. They don't speak that much, but that only builds distance. And talking may not fix everything, but not talking definitely won't.
Right, and worsens the situation. Right?
That is correct, yes.
But I think that a lot of our viewers who are watching, they might wonder, how can I be honest, but at the same time not hurt my partner's feelings? So do you have any tips on that too?
Okay, being honest and not hurting my partner's feeling and emotions. Well, I think that you've got to speak how you feel first. You have to speak up and you have to show that how you feel and the circumstances that is happening around you. I think that's the first step that you have to approach your partner.
Very important tip. Now, what's your tip, Sang-yeop?
Appearance.
Physical
appearance.
Also, that's what you prioritize.
But don't get me wrong, I'm not someone who only prioritizes appearance. But I do believe that appearance really matters in terms of relationship. And let's be honest, you guys, even the 6-month infants prefer to be hugged by someone who's pretty or handsome. So I think appearance is in fact like a human nature to pursue someone who's good looking or beautiful. So to maintain positive feelings toward each other, neither side should neglect their appearance. So it's important to stay in a condition where you can continue to make your partner feel attracted and excited through self-care and personal grooming. And when I mean by appearance here, I'm not saying that you should be handsome like a celebrity, but you should at least keep yourself neat and tidy. So if you think that you're not that good looking, well, then at least try to stay clean. And I think self-care is like a manner for your loved ones too. And recently I can see that many women are actually prioritizing the looks and the appearance over financial capability when they look for men. And I think this is one of the reasons that is actually related to what we've mentioned in the beginning. As more women get independent and as they have more raise in their financial income, I think for women's perspective, they rather than just like pursuing only the financial the talents of a man or their financial capabilities, I think women are now tending to diversify their lens of looking their ideal partners. And I think this is just a natural phase of where our society is progressing in terms of finding ideal partner.
Right, and Sang-yeop, you mentioned how self-care and personal grooming are important when maintaining a loving relationship. So I'd like to personally ask you, is there anything that you personally do to take care of yourself?
Well, for men, well, I guess, actually for men, you don't really have to put on like a happy makeups, but you can at least try to groom your eyebrows and the nostril hairs as well. So, I mean, those kind of things actually make your appearance to another level because for men, staying tidy is actually the key to attractive appearance. So that, and also for men, I think physical appearance also matters. So why don't you guys go to fitness centers, go to gyms,
work out regularly.
Work out regularly.
Hit the gym every day.
Do you hit the gym every day?
Well, not every day, but I try to go there like 3 times a week.
All right. Hope our discussion today and our tips today helps you find love and maintain a healthy and loving relationship. And that's all we have for today and this week's News Generation. But we will be back, as you know, next Monday at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks to Kwon Ji-yeon.
Have a lovely and romantic day.
Thank you. I'll try to. And Yoon Sang-yeop.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us throughout the week. Hope you have a nice weekend, and we'll see you next week. We are News Generation.
제주 영어 교육 도시의 중심 NACS 제주에서 세계 명문대 출신 엘리트 교사진과 해외 커리큘럼으로 전 세계 상위 1%의 학사 성과를 달성하고 있으며 졸업생들은 세계 최정상급 대학으로 진학하고 있습니다. 전인적인 성장과 함께 꿈을 찾아가는 특별한 교육의 가치. 글로벌 동문 네트워크로 계속됩니다. NACS 제주가 명문대 진학의 길을 열어갑니다.